a thought experiment. I'm a bank, okay? I decide I want to open a bank. And now you're allowed to put money in the bank, okay? So all of you get together and you put $5 million in the bank. Now $5 million. Now, why do you put $5 million into my bank? Because I promise you 1% interest, right? 1% interest. That's a really good deal. But now because I owe you some money, right? I owe you 1% interest. I now need to go make money for myself. So I have a friend who's building a restaurant. And he says, I need $5 million to build the restaurant. And after a year, I will pay you back 10% interest. Okay? 10% interest. And so I make a 9% profit, and I can use that to pay my employees, to pay myself a salary, to build a new building, okay? So now I want you to think about this. I'm the bank, I got $5 million in deposit money, then I gave out a $5 million loan. Today, how much money is in the bank? Countless. Countless. How much money now do I have? I got $5 million from you guys, then I gave it out to someone else, right? So how much money is in the bank right now? Zero. Zero, right? It should be zero. Logically, the answer is zero. In fact, zero is the answer that you are taught in economics. It's what you are taught, yeah?
Zero is not the answer that we're taught in economics.
Okay.
You cannot loan all the money that you have. Like, for example, if they will have a limit, like 25%, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe 10%, so you can only loan like 4 million.
Okay, yeah, okay, really good point, okay, oh yes. Okay, so that's really good. So in economics, you learn about the idea of the fractional reserve system. Okay, what's fractional reserve? As you say, you must leave behind a certain amount of money. It could be 7%, it could be 10%, it depends on the country, okay? Let's say 10%. So theoretically, I can actually lend out $5 million. I can only lend out $4.5 million. Okay? You're right, okay? That's law as well. Okay? Actually, okay, let's say I lend out $4.5 million, okay? Now how much money do I have in the bank? Yeah, $500,000, right? Okay? So again, this is what you're taught in economics. This is what makes logical sense, right? The correct answer, what actually happens in real life, is you now have $9.5 million. Okay, that is the correct answer. This makes no sense, right? But it happens in reality. And how do we know? Because over the past 20 years, Chinese banks, like the Bank of China, the Bank of Industry and Commerce, the Agricultural Bank of China. If you Google these banks, what you will see is, these past 20 years, these banks have become the largest in the world. How did that happen? Was it because Chinese people got rich and put all the money in the bank? No, that's not what happened. What happened, guys?
Supported by the country, the government.
Okay, what happened was, these banks start to lend money out to corporations, to government, to people, to build skyscrapers, to build roads. In other words, the banks start to create money out of nothing in order to finance China's infrastructure projects. And that's what banks are allowed to do. They're allowed to print money, create money out of nothing. Okay? Does that make sense? Now the question then is, wait a minute here. That's kind of absurd. How this system come into being? How's it created? Okay, well actually, there's a very easy explanation for where we got the system from. All right, so let me explain the history and the origin of the system. So in the beginning, it was merchants who engaged in finance because merchants needed money in order to facilitate trade. Okay? And some merchants became extremely wealthy. And when they became very wealthy, they started banks in order to support trade and other merchants. Okay, so these banks traded in gold because that was the primary source and supply of money back then. Okay, so what happened is you would come and you would put your money, your gold, in the bank for safekeeping. And the bank would give you a contract, right? A contract is just saying, thank you for giving me your gold. I promise to give back your gold at any time that you want it. And that's what we call a receipt, right? And this would allow for better and easier trade. Because now I can take this contract and I can go to England, okay? Maybe I'm based in Italy. But now I can go to England and say, listen, I need to buy cotton or bananas from you. And the person is like, well, what are you gonna give me? I'm gonna give you gold, right? So I take the receipt and I give it to you, right? And why do we do this? Because it's a lot easier than giving gold to other people. And so this system would facilitate trade throughout the world. Doesn't make sense. Now, I'm the bank. I have all this gold. And I want to make money with it. So I want to give it to other people. So other merchants would come to me and say, listen, I need gold. Can you lend me out gold? Right? But I say to him, yeah, but if I give you out the gold, you have a security issue. It's inconvenient for you. So why don't I give you a receipt, a contract instead? Does that make sense? Because all I need is a contract, all I need is a receipt in order to go and do trade elsewhere. Right? So by doing this, what I've done is I've doubled the gold in my bank, right? I've created money out of nothing.